Let me ask you something. Have you ever sat through a presentation where the solution sounded great, but somehow it just didn't hit the mark? Most failed presentations aren't usually solution problems. They're usually positioning problems. Because while the presenter is explaining, the customer is quietly thinking to themselves, is this presentation for me or is it not for me? And if you don't solve that quickly, you tend to lose them. Today on the Business Moves Blueprint, we're going to talk about how to position your solution so clearly that your prospect feels you're describing their exact situation and showing them a path they really care about. Now, let me start with a quick story. A consultant once pitched a powerful solution to a company. It included data tools with state-of-the-art automation and dashboards. I mean, the works. Technically, the presentation was flawless. But the client didn't sign off on it, and the reason was simple. The consultant simply focused on the features of the solution. Now, while features explain the product well, they failed to connect to the person at times. So this client never saw himself in the solution. In reality, he wasn't thinking about fancy automation and dashboards. He was worried about missing quarterly goals and targets and quietly wondering if he was about to lose his job. So it wasn't the solution that was wrong. It was the positioning of it that was. Let's start the presentation process right here. You earn the right to present your solution after completing a full discovery with your prospect. After completing your discovery, ask yourself, do I truly understand where this prospective client is today? And do I know where they want to be in the future? Just as important, do you understand why it truly matters to them? Commence your presentation at the point where they are in this present state, not where you believe they need to be in a future state. Now, at times, you can highlight a status in their future to create a sense of intrigue, but always come back to their present reality to begin your presentation. You should clearly understand now any real challenges that they may be facing. You should also know what may be frustrating them and what's not working and why. Here's the key. If you can describe their situation back to them so clearly that they stop and say, whoa, that's exactly what's happening, you've just crossed the most important threshold in the entire conversation. Because if they don't feel understood by you, they won't believe your solution could fit. Now, your stronger presenters will effectively use persuasion in their presentations, which can be enhanced by displaying comparison. You can highlight the before picture to the after picture, the with to the without, the cost of staying the same versus the benefit of change. It's that comparison that allows them to feel the difference, not just understand it. Now imagine this. You have a business owner staying up at night, watching the company numbers consistently drop, feeling defeated, unsure of what levers to pull to get things back on track. He's not just looking for a solution. He's stressed out and looking for clarity. Now, contrast that with that same business owner checking his numbers, calmly, smiling and clear of what's driving this great result, beaming with confidence from your solution. That comparison revealed a gap in results, which is where your presentation and your solution fits. When you define what success may look like to them, try two things. First, discuss metrics and outcomes like performance metrics, profitability metrics, efficiency metrics, and any other pertinent measurable factors that they track. Then connect those outcomes and those metrics to feelings. This will cover both aspects of logic and emotion, which is key in any decision-making process. People just don't buy numbers and stated results. They quite often buy how those results make them feel. So instead of just saying something like, with this solution, we can improve your reporting time by 40%. Think about making an adjustment. Something like, we can improve your reporting time by 40%. which should improve those Monday morning meetings you mentioned and allow you to walk into them feeling more prepared and more confident. Now, if we could move you from stress to control like that, would that matter to you? When your solution makes logical sense and makes them feel something, it may sell itself. You'll just need to now show it at this point. Position your solution as the bridge to their ideal state. When you are preparing for your presentations, always consider including visuals. Words explain, but visuals help people feel, and they tend to stick longer. Using a simple image representing their exact situation and what they are going through will allow you to limit the amount of time that you spend in explanation. Because the visual will make things vivid and striking for them. In addition, when preparing to focus on the solution, focus on just 2 to 3 key benefits and tie each one directly back to the problem they are dealing with. A sample positioning statement may sound like, Mr. Williams, based on what you've shared so far, and because you're presently experiencing problems with your reporting time, our observation shows you will need to replace your XY widget application, which will allow you to achieve the results that you're looking for. If possible, you can also bring in a relevant success story. For example, we worked with a client in a similar situation last month, and after making that same XY widget adjustment, we were able to reduce their reporting time by 40%. But more importantly, they stopped feeling overwhelmed at their production meetings every week. Does any of this sound similar to what you're experiencing now? Okay, here's the part many of us will avoid at times, and it's because it may feel uncomfortable. But as people say, we have to become comfortable with the uncomfortable at times. Some customers need to think about what happens in their situation if nothing changes at all. What if they stay with the status quo? What will that look like for them? You will need to describe any opportunities that they may be missing, any pending dealings with ongoing stress, any increased risks that may remain in the picture. Think about the outlook of their business and stagnation over a long period of time. That's a picture that no business leader wants to see. You can ask, Mr. Williams, think about 6 months down the road. What if you're still dealing with the same pressure, the same uncertainty, the same results that you're dealing with today? Would you want relief from all that? It's interesting that at times customers need to feel the hurt of a situation before they will move to be healed. What's fascinating is people make decisions faster and more decisively when trying to move away from experiencing pending pain, more so than when they are looking at the opportunity of a positive gain. That's fascinating to me, but in many cases it's typical and they need that little boost. When you position all this correctly, you will create a sense of urgency in your prospect. Think about your last few presentations. How much time did you spend talking about your solution versus talking about what their situation is? It's simple. Did you make them the center of the conversation, or did you make your solution the center? Because if they're not the center, they may not feel the solution fits. Let's recap a few things. Start discussing your solution with their present reality, where they are today. Then elevate their future state, where they would like to be. Then bridge the gap and position the solution that will connect both points clearly. Before your next presentation, ask yourself, am I focusing strictly on my solution or their situation and their problem? Am I making the gap for them to see? Will they understand how this solution can bridge their gap? And will they feel the urgency to act on the solution? Now, before leaving this topic, let's talk about a situation that, while we don't want it to happen, it absolutely will at times. And that's the dreaded moment when the customer says, I just need some time to think about it. It happens. And if we're being honest, it can be discouraging. But here's the first thing to understand. Handling hesitation with prospects is not an interruption to your process. It is your process. And it should never come as a surprise, because when it does, it will come through in your tonality. And the moment that happens, your customer will feel it. They will put their guards up. And once they're defending that position, you're not going to win that interaction. So let's reframe what's actually happening here. When someone says they need to think about it, most times it doesn't mean no. It means they haven't seen, haven't understood, or heard anything compelling enough to move forward at this time. And that's important because it tells you what to do next. Now, here are two common mistakes we see all the time in this moment. First common mistake: people who repeat the same solution again to the customer. And second, they immediately will ask the customer a question like, why not? Why aren't you moving forward today? Now, let's break these down. If you repeat the same exact solution over again without understanding what's actually holding them back, why would that change anything for them? I mean, you're giving them the same information and expecting a different result. Is that possibly insanity? And by the way, that rarely works. Now, the thought of asking a question is the right instinct. But the problem is, it's not just what you're asking, it's how you're asking it that influences. When you respond directly after their statement with a question like, why aren't you moving forward today? It can feel confrontational to many people. And when you think about it, at this point, maybe they're at the end of the time that they allotted for this meeting. They may have to leave for another commitment. So now, not only are they feeling pressured by you, they may also feel delayed or rushed about this commitment they have to get to. And that's when resistance will increase. So here's a more effective way that we believe you can handle this. Step 1, simply acknowledge what they are telling you. Acknowledgement can sound something like, Mr. Collins, I completely understand wanting to take some time to think about this. I mean, you're making an important decision for the entire company, and it may involve some major changes to your processes. And let's face it, there's a financial and a time commitment as well. Heck, if I was in your shoes, I'd be thinking about those same things as well, sir. What this does is remove any sense of pressure, and it takes down their guard. It also validates their decision. You're no longer an adversary sitting across the table from them. You're sitting on the same side of the table with them. And that changes the entire dynamic of the meeting. So step 2, ask permission to ask your question first. Mr. Collins, before you go, may I ask you a quick question? Now, before any of you ask, the answer is no. Nobody has ever told me no when I ask. But if they did, I would probably feel like they really didn't want to do business with me anyway. Or they possibly had a commitment to get to, and this would be holding them up. Either way, this does two things. First, it shows respect for their time. And second, it gives them some control. And when people feel they have some control, they're far more open to you. Now ask the right question. Instead of asking, well, why in general, try asking something like, Mr. Collins, I'm curious, when you say you'd like to think about it, what specifically about this solution is on your mind at this time? That's a very different question. It's not confrontational at all. It's exploratory. And your tonality, again, matters here. You don't want to sound interrogating. You're just trying to understand. What you'll often discover in this moment is they may have misunderstood part of your solution, or they didn't hear the part that could have made the difference in their decision. Now, there's always the possibility that there's a concern that they haven't expressed yet, which becomes that dreaded reason behind the real reason. But that's what you're trying to smoke out at this point. When you do understand their hesitation point, you can now respond to an identified concern, not a blind one. This shows professionalism and listening skill. When responding, do not, and I repeat, do not respond with the entire solution again. Just the part that you found that matters to them and they're concerned about. And when you do respond, tie it back to that impact or that emotion. Describe what happens when they move forward versus what could happen if they fail to. Then and only then, you can attempt to close again. Now, here's the reality. Let's keep it real. This approach won't convert every maybe into a yes on the spot. But what it will do is dramatically increase the number of people who will eventually move forward, either in that moment or shortly after in follow-up. Because now they feel understood, they feel respected, and they have clarity. And in many cases, that's what they needed all along. Just a few final thoughts to strengthen up those presentations. People react more favorably when they're involved in the process. So ask them questions and keep them engaged. Stories are remembered far more vividly than facts alone. Use them if possible and if they're relevant. Avoid the one more thing at the end of a meeting. Prepare thoroughly so you get all your points across. And no, great presenters are not born. Great presenters are usually obsessed with being great. They prepare and they rehearse relentlessly. Their obvious skill isn't by chance. Don't take that excuse as an easy way out. You have to rehearse and put up reps if you want to improve. Finally, keep it concise. Present just long enough to make your case and get out. You know, when we observe people in their craft, we often find one person spends all their time explaining, while the other person is being vividly striking and persuasive. And there's a huge difference there. If you find your prospects aren't moving forward, it's rarely because they don't need help. It's usually because the problem hasn't been made clear enough or the solution hasn't been made real enough. And that's where your opportunity will always be. Thank you for joining us on the Business Moves Blueprint. If you want to catch upcoming and bonus episodes, be sure to subscribe right here. We look forward to hearing about your successes in your business ventures. I'm Rashid Hanif, and as always, we wish you all peace.